If you grew up in the 90s, odds are you have fond memories of cruising down rivers of lava and being digested as you get attacked by your classmates' white blood cells. That's right. Today we're going to be taking a trip down memory lane of everybody's favorite animated educational show, The Magic School Bus. We're also going to be covering its sequel show, The Magic School Bus Rides Again, so don't get off the bus just yet. There's a whole other universe to explore. But for those of you who somehow didn't grow up watching this iconic show whenever your teacher called in sick, let's go over a few things before we begin. Based on the popular book series written by Joanna Cole and Bruce Deegan, the premise of the show is simply a teacher taking her students on crazy field trips across different locations, time periods, and learning all about the wonders of science. All thanks to the teacher's magic school bus that can morph and change into anything. It could be a rocket ship to the size of a molecule. The first Magic School Bus show aired from 1994 to 1997, while its sequel show aired pretty recently from 2017 to 2018 with 4 specials airing from 2020 to 2021. In charge of the Magic School Bus is the eccentric and mysterious teacher, Miss Valerie Frizzle, or the Frizz, voiced by Lily Tomlin. Known for her learning is fun attitude and wild outfits that coincide with each field trip, her mission is to make sure the students solve problems by learning whatever scientific topic is the premise of the episode. Her students include the class clown, Carlos Ramon, the bookworm, Dorothy Ann D.A. Hudson, the skeptical Keisha Franklin, the kind-hearted new student Phoebe Therese, the imaginative and always hungry Ralphie Tonelli, the artistic Tim Wright, the adventurous tomboy Wanda Lee, and of course, everybody's favorite, the timid yet sometimes brave Arnold Perlstein. And let's not forget Liz, the glass pet lizard who is Miss Frizzle's right-hand reptile in every adventure. So grab a porta shrinker, put on your seatbelts, and let's get a wild ride on the Magic School Bus.
Cruising on down Main Street, you're relaxed and feeling good.
Starting off the show with its first episode, Gets Lost in Space, where we're greeted by one of the show's most annoying recurring characters, Arnold's cousin Janet. Janet is from another school and is always bragging how much smarter and better she is and how much better her school is, specifically her own teacher. The class is learning about the solar system, so naturally Janet is here to brag about how her class has already covered it, made a project 10 times more impressive than whatever they're doing.
I bet you your class didn't learn about the aliens that live on the planets.
In walks Miss Frizzle, wearing a space-themed outfit telling everybody they're going on another wild and fun field trip to the planetarium. The kids aren't exactly excited, and Janet doesn't stop rubbing it in Arnold's face. This prompts Arnold to snap and beg Mrs. Frizzle to take them to a different, more impressive planetarium. So naturally, Miss Frizzle blasts them off to space. I mean, you can't get much bigger than literal space.
Welcome to outer space, class.
Miss Frizzle takes the kids to all the different planets, letting them explore on foot and learn all about each planet. Janet, realizing that nobody back home will believe she's been to each planet, decides to collect meteorites or anything native to each planet that they land on. However, all this hoarding begins to fill up space inside the bus, making it harder for the bus to function. When they reach the asteroid belt, Janet stops the bus so she can get an asteroid, causing the bus to crash into one, damaging their navigation. Lost in space, Miss Frizzle and Janet head outside to repair the bus, where Janet sees the perfect asteroid to take back home. She lassos it in, only to knock the bus away from Miss Frizzle and marooning them all in space.
We're lost in space without a teacher! What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do?
Miss Frizzle contacts them, saying she's headed for one of the outer planets. Unfortunately, the map is still damaged and doesn't show how to get to her, leaving the kids with no option but to put their faith in Janet. Miss Frizzle gives them a riddle on how to find her. The colder you get, the warmer you'll be to finding me. So they pass by the rest of the planets, all while having to restrain Janet from taking resources from every planet. Come on, chill, girl.
Sorry, Janet, but I have to stay on top of the situation.
They arrive on Pluto. This came out back when Pluto was still a planet. Thanks, Neil deGrasse Tyson. And they find Miss Frizzle. Miss Frizzle is proud of her students for using their brains to find her, while Janet fills the rest of the bus with Pluto rocks. Arnold tries to convince Janet that she doesn't need to prove she was here because they already believe her. But Janet refuses to leave without her rocks and meteorites. Arnold has no other option but to prove what will happen if she stays here and removes his helmet, instantly crystallizing in the cold vacuum of space. Wow. I do remember this scene. I kind of didn't know it was in the pilot, so this was a shock. Everybody, including Janet, gets Arnold back inside and races back to Earth, leaving behind everything Janet collected as proof. Back in the classroom, Arnold has nothing more than a cold, and Janet learns a valuable lesson. Ralphie is sick in the episode Inside Ralphie and has to stay home, but the class needs him for their broadcast day. So Miss Frizzle takes them all on a field trip to Ralphie's house and sets up shop in his room.
I must be hallucinating. Maybe I'm sicker than I thought.
Miss Frizzle gets the idea that all the best action for the broadcast is located directly inside of sick Ralphie. So they transform the bus really small and go inside Ralphie's body in order to find out why he's sick. They find a way in through a cut on his leg, since Ralphie kept coughing them up through his mouth and traveled down his bloodstream. They find bacteria cells destroying Ralphie's blood cells and realize that's what's making him sick. White blood cells come to destroy the bacteria, but the bacteria is multiplying faster than the white blood cells can destroy them. Thankfully, the medicine Ralphie's mom gave him earlier comes to the rescue and helps destroy the bacteria, releasing antibodies to help the white blood cells. Unfortunately, the antibodies think the bus is bacteria, and the white blood cells begin attacking the bus.
Oh no! Ralphie's antibodies have marked the bus as bacteria!
Miss Frizzle slams on the gas and escapes out of Ralphie's body via his nose. Liz helps Ralphie sneeze, and everybody's saved. The kids are growing a garden in this episode goes to seed, and each student has contributed to one plant. Their garden is going to be on the cover of Plant It magazine, and the photographer is coming by soon to take that picture. However, Phoebe's plant is still at her old school, and has been unable to get it back. Naturally, Miss Frizzle sees this as the perfect opportunity for a field trip, and takes everybody to Phoebe's old school.
We're going to my old school? All of us?
They fly to Phoebe's old school and find her plant, but the bus gets stuck in the plant's nectar. They get an idea to attract lots of bees and drink up the nectar, which will free them. It works, and they fly off. But Phoebe's old teacher, Mr. Seedplot, shows up and she panics because she's afraid of what he might say if he sees how crazy her new teacher in school is.
At my old school, we never rode on bumblebees. We are at your old school, Phoebe.
The kids shrink down to the size of pollen and hitch a ride on the plant seed back to their school using the wind, with Mr. Seedplot right behind them. They plant the new seed and grow it quickly using the bus's magic, right when the photographer shows up. Phoebe freaks out because Mr. Seedplot is here too, and Phoebe admits to the class that she's embarrassed by Miss Frizzle. The kids point out all the cool things Miss Frizzle has done, and Phoebe realizes that she was actually wrong.
Miss Frizzle's the best. Mr. Seedplot can think what he likes.
The bus grows to normal size, and Phoebe introduces her old teacher to Miss Frizzle. Turns out they both already know each other, and Mr. Seedplot is Miss Frizzle's biggest fan, calling her garden magical. The episode ends with their picture being taken. How about we turn up the heat in the episode Kicks Up a Storm, where we're introduced to Ralphie's alter ego, Weatherman. A heat wave has rolled in, and everybody is suffering from the heat. Ralphie argues a thunderstorm would solve everything, but only someone like Weatherman could make that happen, whose powers include controlling the 3 ingredients that make up all weather: water, air, and heat. Keisha is skeptical, saying Weatherman doesn't exist, that Ralphie has no idea what he's talking about, which gives Miss Frizzle an idea for their next field trip. The bus transforms for their field trip, and Ralphie transforms into Weatherman, which is, well, it's just him wearing a cape, but I like it. It's a good outfit.
Tim, if Ralphie's Weatherman, then I'm the Queen of England.
Miss Frizzle lets Ralphie, Weatherman take charge of everything, cycling everyone into the 3 different components of weather. All the while, Keisha can't believe people are encouraging Ralphie's reckless experimenting. Tim, on the other hand, can't stop brainstorming ideas for a Weatherman comic. Brainstorming? See what I did there? I'm getting more subtle. Weatherman finally unleashes his thunderstorm, accidentally creating a powerful one that makes things worse. He tries to stop it, but Miss Frizzle informs him that thunderstorms have to run their course, which means they're trapped in the storm. Weatherman hangs up his cape, turning back into Ralphie, saying that he's a fraud, until Keisha gives Ralphie some encouragement, calling him Weatherman.
You can get us out of this. It doesn't matter whether you're Weatherman or Ralphie.
Which leads to an idea. He tells everybody to jump onto a snowflake, saying the only way out is down. The snowflakes turn them into rainwater, where they fall straight into Carlos's rain catcher. Liz dumps them out, and they return to normal size. The episode ends with Keisha wanting to be Weather Woman, which Ralphie points out can't happen, and the two of them argue over the possibility. Forget the storm. I think there might be some romance in the air. Alright, moving on to the next episode, Blows Its Top, where we see the kids trying to put together a model Earth only for it all to fall apart. Carlos blames DA for not helping them, but Miss Frizzle informs them that the reason it fell apart was because there was a piece missing. As in, there's an island that has yet to be discovered.
You're not suggesting another field trip, are you, Miss Frizzle? Whoa!
The bus transforms into a plane and flies them to the new island, which turns out to be a volcano about to erupt. Carlos wants to name the island Carlos Island, of course, while DA wants to name it something more practical. They fight over what to name it throughout the whole episode.
That's a silly name for an island.
What would you call it? According to my research, island?
The bus lands on the water, and everyone gets out to look for the island, but DA loses her books in the water. She begs Miss Frizzle to help her get her books back, and she turns the bus into a submarine to dive after them, while Carlos, Arnold, and Liz stay above water and try to find the island before they do. They look for her books under the Earth's crust, and Miss Frizzle gives a lesson on plate tectonics, where DA deduces that the volcano would turn into an island as it erupts, giving them a way out. The volcano finally erupts, and everybody flies out safely onto Carlos's raft, where it turns out Carlos had her books all along when they floated to the surface. In the end, Liz gets to name the island. Well, I guess every lizard has its day. Onward to the episode flexes its muscles. The kids are playing volleyball, except Ralphie, who has to clean the bus because his laziness has caught up to him. Exhausted from all the hard work, Ralphie gets the brilliant idea to build himself a robot to do the work for him.
That's it, Liz! I could make a robot!
He shares his brilliant idea with everybody, and they all love it, except for Keisha, who's once again skeptical that Ralphie can actually build a robot. Ralphie argues that he can, so they wager that if he can't do it, then Ralphie has to do all of their chores for them. Luckily, the bus is malfunctioning, so Miss Frizzle takes everybody to a body shop where an old friend of hers, R.U. Humorous, can repair the bus. While he works on the bus, Ralphie wastes no time trying to build a robot from all the spare parts lying around. Turns out, building a robot is a lot harder than it sounds, so Ralphie gets a quick lesson from Humorous, telling him that in order to know how to build a robot, he must understand how his own body is structured. After learning about bones, joints, and muscles, Ralphie finally creates a working robot. It comes to life and begins wreaking havoc all around them.
I knew I should've.
Don't say it, Arnold!
Ralphie tries to stop the robot, only making the problem worse, until Miss Frizzle gives Ralphie an idea on how to stop it. With Keisha's help, Ralphie starts taking the robot apart, starting with its muscles, then its joints, and finally its bones. Keisha is impressed, and the bus returns back to normal. The kids get the treat of witnessing a dinosaur dig in the episode The Busasaurus, led by another friend of Miss Frizzle, Dr. Carmina Skeledon, voiced by Rita Moreno. While there, they find a fossilized dinosaur egg, and Arnold gets to keep it. He, Phoebe, and Carlos argue over what dinosaurs were like, which prompts Miss Frizzle to time travel them back to the time of the dinosaurs to find out for themselves.
Get back? Well, why do I have a sneaking suspicion?
During which Arnold's fossilized egg turns back into a real egg. Upon exploring this dinosaur world, Arnold and Phoebe accidentally lose the egg when another dinosaur steals it. They chase after it, getting separated from the group. Phoebe encourages Arnold to leave the egg alone, but Arnold becomes brave, saying he was given the egg by Dr. Carmina. Therefore, it's up to him to get it back. Arnold and Phoebe chase the dinosaur, finding the egg on top of a sleeping T-Rex. They get the egg back, but the T-Rex awakens and chases them towards everybody else on the bus. Arnold stumbles and loses the egg in a mud pit, prompting him to hide under the bus, while the T-Rex tries to eat everybody inside.
You know, this would be the perfect opportunity to study the digestive system of a T-Rex.
Miss Frizzle makes Arnold the size of the T-Rex, and the two of them fight it out. Well, if you can call it that. And Arnold wins, rescuing his egg. Phoebe tells Arnold it was a good thing he didn't stay home today, and Arnold bashfully stumbles over his words as he agrees. In Going Batty, oh, I love this one. Okay, in Going Batty, Miss Frizzle has invited the students' parents on a field trip as part of their parent-teacher conference. Several of the parents are voiced by famous actors like Elliot Gould, Tyne Daly, and Edward James Olmos. During all this, Ralphie is convinced that Miss Frizzle is a vampire because of how she's been acting, and is afraid she's going to do something terrible to all of them on this field trip.
The only way to stop a teacher vampire is to drive a textbook through her heart!
Miss Frizzle takes their parents to a creepy old mansion, which definitely doesn't look like Dracula's summer home. The kids watch them drink blood, but Keisha points out it's just tomato juice from their class picnic. The place is crawling with bats and mosquitoes, making Ralphie more convinced Miss Frizzle is a bloodsucker. But Phoebe points out that the bats are more interested in eating the mosquitoes than them. Ralphie tries to get everybody to safety, accidentally turning the bus into a bat. This allows them to learn about bat echolocation, which Ralphie discovers he can use to find their parents.
A bat could fly back to the castle in the dark, find a way inside, and save his parents from Count Frizzula!
Accidentally turning them all into bats. Man, Ralphie just loves pressing buttons. You know, I just realized why I recognize this one. I would watch this all the time, specifically on Halloween. Anyway, the kids fly into the castle and find their parents hanging upside down like bats. Convinced the Frizz has turned them into vampires, they charge to attack, only to discover they were pretending, simply learning how bats like to hang when they sleep. Ralphie apologizes for letting his imagination get carried away again, as well as thinking that all bats are vampires. In Butterfly and the Bog Beast, the kids are trying to figure out a new school mascot before their intense soccer game later that day, when Phoebe suggests their mascot be the Butterflies. Everyone is against the idea, since butterflies don't exactly strike fear into the hearts of your opponent. Suddenly, Janet shows up, and is just as smug and annoying as last time. She overheard their discussion about a new mascot, and suggests they name their mascot the Bog Beasts. Everybody loves the idea because of how it sounds, but Phoebe still thinks that butterflies are better than whatever a Bog Beast is. Janet points out that the school they're playing against is Phoebe's old school.
Isn't today's soccer game against your old school?
Therefore, Phoebe must be trying to make them all look bad because she must still swear allegiance to her old school. This turns the class even more against the idea of having their mascot be a butterfly. Until Miss Frizzle swoops in and takes the class on a field trip to learn more about butterflies. They travel to Butterfly Bog and meet all sorts of butterflies. Above them, they see that butterflies are easily defeated by predators, yet they are strikingly beautiful, hinting that there may be more to their beauty. Janet is determined to catch the Bog Beast and prove to everybody its superiority to butterflies. She runs off to catch one.
Why don't you pick on somebody your own size?
It's here we're introduced to one of Miss Frizzle's most iconic devices, the porta shrinker, and Phoebe accidentally shrinks everybody, including the bus. They try to resize themselves, but the porta shrinker zaps out, so now they're stuck being small. Phoebe runs off to save the butterflies from Janet and runs into a caterpillar disguised as a snake. The kids learn about caterpillars and how one day they will turn into butterflies. It's a really cool, insightful lesson. Janet shows up to catch a nearby butterfly, but can't see it because the coloring on its wings makes it camouflaged with the tree. Janet continues to find butterflies, and Phoebe and Ralphie chase after her, causing them to run straight into a butterfly whose wings resemble that of a monster, scaring Ralphie.
Bog Beast!
This convinces Ralphie, the one more against butterflies than anybody else, to admit that they would make a great mascot, and everybody else agrees too. The bus transforms into a butterfly, and Janet chases it, not knowing it's everybody inside the bus. Phoebe uses her new knowledge of butterflies and makes the wings so terrifying that Janet thinks that she found the Bog Beast. The porta shrinker works again, and Tim shows Janet a picture of what she thought was the Bog Beast, realizing it was just a butterfly. Phoebe and Janet decide to call the new mascot the Bog Beast Butterflies.
The Bog Beast Butterfly! Yeah, why not?
They make it back for their game, and Phoebe scores the winning goal thanks to some encouragement from Janet, dressed as their new mascot. Court is in session in the episode In a Pickle. The kids are coming back from a school vacation when Keisha discovers that somebody has stolen her cucumber and replaced it with a pickle. Keisha accuses Miss Frizzle of being the culprit, especially since she walks in eating a pickle and her entire closet is full of them. You could say, this is quite the pickle. Sorry. Miss Frizzle admits that something did happen to her cucumber, but isn't missing. Arnold suddenly goes all lawyer on them, taking them to court to determine what happened to Keisha's cucumber. Keisha accuses Miss Frizzle of taking her cucumber and replacing it with a pickle. Naturally, Miss Frizzle is accusing herself of the exact same thing.
Oh, bravo, Keisha! I intend to prove the same thing. It's so nice when everyone's on the same side.
Miss Frizzle!
Miss Frizzle reveals a plot twist, that she didn't change the cucumber into a pickle, but she knows who did. The Invisible Microbe Gang. Keisha and the jury are skeptical that Miss Frizzle is going crazy for real this time. She's making stuff up. So Miss Frizzle asks the court if she can take them all on a field trip. Miss Frizzle shows them all the tiny amoebas and fungi that exist all around us that our naked eyes just can't see, proving microbes exist. Keisha is still not convinced, saying that none of this was responsible for turning her cucumber into a pickle. But luckily, a geyser of tomato juice sends them splashing down into Keisha's pickle brine. Here, they see the fungi from the tomato getting killed off by the pickle bacteria. Liz accidentally knocks another cucumber into the brine, and the pickle bacteria fend off the tomato fungi that made the tomato rot, and will preserve the cucumber by turning it into a pickle. This proves Miss Frizzle's innocence, as she saved Keisha's cucumber from rotting like Arnold's tomato. And Arnold proves that he's got the makings of a great lawyer.
I rest my case.
The carnival is in town in the episode Getting Energized, and the kids are in charge of a Ferris wheel. However, when the carnival opens, the Ferris wheel doesn't turn on. Carlos tries to fix it, accidentally making the problem worse, leaving him no other option but to call his little brother Mikey for help.
Hey, Mikey, come in.
not Mikey!
Mikey comes up with the idea to drop a bunch of heavy rocks on top of the Ferris wheel, which will cause the wheel to turn, so everybody hops in the bus to find some. However, getting the rocks up the mountain creates a problem, because the rocks are heavy, and they have to carry so many up the tall mountain. So they learn how to power a conveyor belt using wind, and get the rocks up the mountain. But they didn't account for the river, and they fall into it. This gives them the idea to use water power to catapult the rocks up the mountain. However, all of this only got the rocks halfway. So they resort to another source of energy to get the rocks up: steam. Using all three, they managed to get the rocks up the mountain and power the Ferris wheel, freeing everybody from Carlos's stand-up routine.
No Ferris wheel yet!
Alright, let's head back into space. I miss it. This episode is called Out of This World because something big is headed our way. DA has a nightmare that an asteroid is going to crash into the school and kill everybody. She wakes up and discovers that there is indeed an asteroid headed to Earth and tries to warn everyone, but no one takes her seriously, until Wanda suggests that they call NASA and warn them. NASA puts them on hold, so Miss Frizzle suggests they prove DA is right by taking another field trip into space and finding the asteroid.
To the bus?
Mm-hmm. Single file, please.
The bus transforms into a discount USS Enterprise, and they fly to Saturn, which is where DA last plotted the asteroid. Along the way, the kids learn about comets and gravitational pull, eventually finding the asteroid that DA saw, confirming she was right. They tried to destroy the asteroid by melting it like they just did with the comet, but it's not working, because the asteroid is made of metal and rock, not ice. DA figures out that they don't need to destroy it, they just need to redirect its path. Carlos and Miss Frizzle volunteer to use an escape pod with a giant magnet attached and try to redirect its path, but the pod is too small, and the asteroid is too heavy to move, getting them stuck on the asteroid.
Oh, bad! Oh, bad! Oh, bad, 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 bad!
Phoebe and DA come up with another plan to increase the gravity of the bus by getting bigger, making the asteroid gravitate around them, then getting small again, launching the asteroid into the sun. The only problem is Carlos and Miss Frizzle are still stuck on the asteroid. They solve this problem by ejecting towards the now large bus at the right time, and safely reuniting with everybody else. Liz shrinks the bus right when the asteroid is aimed at the sun, and saves the day. Upon re-entry, they fly through a meteor shower left over from the destroyed asteroid, and DA's mom watches from her home, saying it's a shame DA had to go on a field trip and miss it, unaware DA was the one responsible for the meteor shower. In Cold Feet, the kids arrive to find Liz is missing, and find out she's been taken to some place called Herp Haven. Upon arrival, it's kind of unclear what kind of place it is, until a woman drives up and delivers her pet turtle. She tells the man in charge, Harry Herp, voiced by Michael York, that she wants it stuffed and toasted, just like the others. This makes everybody afraid that Liz is in danger.
I want him toasted and stuffed just like the last one.
So they transform the bus into an alligator and mount a rescue. Once inside, Miss Frizzle turns them all into reptiles, so they can find Liz more easily, while also teaching them about reptiles. They eventually find Liz sleeping in a cold box, and the cold temperature makes them all fall asleep, because they're cold-blooded reptiles. Phoebe rescues them and takes the group somewhere warm. Unfortunately, they run into Harry and are forced to flee into the reptile habitat. Everybody gets back inside the bus, and Phoebe brings the bus to some heat, warming it so that they can escape. Harry catches them when they're climbing the fence, and tells them they forgot Liz's habitat. Turns out, this place was just a reptile spa resort, and Miss Frizzle sent Liz there for a vacation.
Love it when you find out things for yourselves.
Moving on to In a Beehive, where we see Tim and Wanda delivering honey from Tim's grandfather's bee farm. Unfortunately, they encounter a bee which causes them to crash, resulting in all the honey flowing down a storm drain. Tim asks Miss Frizzle if they can take a field trip to his grandfather's bee farm and get more honey. And of course, Miss Frizzle loves any excuse for a field trip. However, Miss Frizzle takes them to a completely different beehive, making this more of an adventure. They find the beehive and transform the bus and themselves into bees in order to get closer.
You're a bee. And you're a Frizz bee.
Carlos!
During which they learn about how bees make honey, calling back to the episode where they use the bees to help them get out of the nectar. They realize that if they take the bees' honey, then the bees won't have any left for them during the winter, so they decide to make their own honey as bees. However, nectar is hard to find, since every flower's nectar has already been taken. But luckily, Tim and Wanda find a field of goldenrods. They gather as much nectar as they can and head back to the hive. But the bus becomes too heavy with nectar and is unable to fly, landing right on top of a hungry bear. Liz evades the bear and they make it back to the hive, only to discover that despite getting so much nectar, it was barely anything. To make matters worse, the bear followed them to the hive and starts tearing the place apart. The bees chase the bear away. but not before it takes most of the honey. Tim blames himself for making the bees starve for the winter, but thanks to Miss Frizzle, he gets an idea on how to tell the bees about the field of goldenrods.
Maybe we could use some kind of sign language.
Let's take chances.
He learns how to communicate with the bees by learning how to dance like one,
They're really bebopping.
and he saves their lives. The bus then turns into a hive, and everybody uses it to make enough honey to save Tim's grandfather's business. To make the ending even sweeter, their last customer tells Tim that it's the best honey he's ever tasted. In Under Construction, we get to see a glimpse of Wanda's family, mainly her baby brother William and her workaholic mom, Mrs. Lee. Miss Frizzle and the class arrive at her house for another field trip, but Wanda can't leave just yet because she has to watch William while her mom works. Miss Frizzle, of course, sees this as another fun opportunity, and everybody helps watch William with her. However, while they're distracted by building blocks, William gets a hold of Miss Frizzle's porta-shrinker and shrinks everybody down, including the bus. Wanda tries to get it back, but accidentally makes William break the porta-shrinker. William chases them, thinking they are toys, forcing them to hide out in the bathroom. Using their new knowledge of how to build structures, everybody figures out a way to get out by building their way to the window and escape with Wanda leading the way.
With the right materials and the right design, we can build structures that can take us anywhere.
Liz brings the bus to them, and Wanda makes everybody normal-sized. Wanda races back inside and tends to William, right as her mom finishes working, never suspecting a thing. The kids hear a strange noise coming from Miss Frizzle's closet in the episode Makes a Rainbow, and discovers that she's invented a pinball machine. Instead of using a ball, this one bounces light off of objects, where one must create a rainbow in order to win. Miss Frizzle reveals that she made a bet with somebody that if she can't get all 6 colors, then the machine she built will be taken away, and she's only able to get all but one. The kids offer to help her by shrinking into the pinball machine via the bus. Everybody except Arnold, who volunteers to stall the school's principal, Mr. Rule. They don't want him to find out what they're doing, because let's face it, playing pinball isn't exactly proper school learning.
Fine, sir. Ding, ding, ding.
Then why are you, dinging?
Carlos and DA work together and manage to get all 6 colors and win the game. But when they try to leave, the bus isn't able to get out of the machine, meaning they're trapped. Arnold can only stall Mr. Rule for so long, so Miss Frizzle has to reveal herself, allowing Arnold to take over trying to help the others. Arnold realizes the only way they're able to get inside the machine was by turning into light. Therefore, they must turn into light in order to get out. They go backwards through the prism and out of the machine. Everybody turns back into normal. Mr. Rule reveals he was the one Miss Frizzle had the bet with, but Miss Frizzle says she didn't make the rainbow. Her students did.
I couldn't have done it without the help of my blue ribbon students.
Heartbroken, he can't get the machine. Miss Frizzle still allows Mr. Rule to come and play whenever he wants. It's Christmas time in the episode Holiday Special, as we get a spin on the classic holiday movie It's a Wonderful Life. The episode opens with the class learning about recycling. Wanda, being the tomboy that she is, ironically has ballet on her mind, and she's going to attend the Nutcracker that night. She adds that instead of tickets to get in, you have to bring a toy to give away to kids less fortunate. Arnold shows up late with more things to recycle, not hearing about Wanda's plans later that day. Wanda notices Arnold's geode in his pocket, and Arnold says it's a gift for his mom, and Wanda thinks it's cool, making Arnold blush.
It's really cool. For a rock. Now come on!
Everybody boards the bus, except for Arnold, who is taking care of something important and sees Wanda's toy on the floor. Thinking that it's recycling, Arnold puts it with the other stuff to recycle and joins them. They reach the recycling plant where they meet Miss Frizzle's cousin, Katrina Eloise Murphy, or Murph for short, voiced by Dolly Parton. Ah, I love it. Arnold and Wanda dump their stuff to recycle in the bins. Wanda sees her Nutcracker toy and tries to stop Murph from recycling it, but it's too late as the toy gets recycled into plastic pellets. Wanda's upset, because now she can't see the Nutcracker, and Arnold tries to apologize.
I don't blame you, Arnold.
You don't?
No, I blame your crummy idea!
Wanda wishes there was no recycling, because then she would still be able to watch the Nutcracker, emphasizing she's been waiting all these years to see it. This gives Miss Frizzle an idea, and decides to show the class what the world would be like if recycling didn't exist. This results in the bus changing the world around them by cutting down forests, overflowing trash cans, and turning their school into a dump. Wanda realizes she made a mistake, and accidentally turns the bus into all the recycled stuff it was before. Thanks to Murph, they realize they can recreate the bus by melting down all those recycled components and create a new bus. The bus turns everything back to normal, including the recycling plant. Arnold realizes they can turn the plastic pellets back into her toy Nutcracker.
We use those plastic pellets to make you a new soldier?
No reason why not.
And it works, making enough toys for everybody to attend the Nutcracker. Sadly, Arnold can't come, because he has to board a train and help his sick grandma. Wanda is sad that Arnold is leaving, but discovers he left her his geode as a present. Feeling bad for Arnold, Wanda has everyone join him on the train, realizing some things are more important. The episode ends with a song about recycling, sung by Dolly Parton. Now that is what I call Christmas spirit.
What goes around comes around again.
Speaking of scientific songs sung by famous artists, let's move on to season 4 in the episode Meets Molly Cool. Wanda's favorite artist, Molly Cool, voiced by Winona Judd, is in town for a concert, and before every show, she has a tradition of always washing her car. So Wanda and the others set up a car wash station, making the bus a fancy car, hoping to attract Molly, and it actually works. Unsurprisingly, Miss Frizzle already knows Molly from when they were in a band together called the Frizzettes. Molly leaves to get ready for the concert, but warns them not to get her hood ornament wet, saying her newest song is dedicated to it.
What is it made of, Miss Kuehl?
That's my little secret, sugar.
They clean the car as spotless as possible, certain that they got every last bit. But Molly finds a spot of tar on her hood using a mega magnifier Miss Frizzle gave her a while back. Molly gives them another chance to clean her car spotless, but the kids can't see the tar anywhere because it's so microscopic. So Miss Frizzle shrinks them smaller than they've ever shrunk before, down to the size of molecules. They do this while Arnold stands watch, trying to stall Molly. They learn about what molecules are and find the spot of microscopic tar. They try to remove it, but it just won't come off, so they find leftover water and soap molecules from when they washed the car and manage to remove it. With the car now officially clean, everyone gets back in the bus and returns to normal size. However, Wanda celebrates and accidentally knocks Molly's hood ornament in a bucket of water, causing it to dissolve instantly.
Well, as my sweet Aunt Confection says, when things disappear in water, there must be a solution.
Arnold deduces that the hood ornament must be made of sugar, so the class shrinks down again so they can rebuild the ornament before Molly gets back. Molly returns, so Arnold stalls her again, but she's running out of time. They need to hurry. Thankfully, they're able to assemble the ornament quickly when they separate the water from the sugar and put the ornament back on the hood without Molly suspecting a thing. Everyone is invited to the concert, and as a thank you, Molly lets them perform her new song with her on stage, which just so happens to be all about molecules. In the episode Gets Charged, the kids are out selling light bulbs door to door when they happen to stumble upon Miss Frizzle's exotic house. They find her unique doorbell and try to ring it, but nothing happens. Afraid she might have broken it, Wanda runs around back to try and find Miss Frizzle. Wanda, along with Tim, finds Miss Frizzle in her room reading what they think is a love poem from a secret lover. Did I mention it's Valentine's Day? Wanda and Tim tell everybody the news, and that her secret lover is coming over right now to ring her doorbell.
Too bad she won't be able to hear it.
You're right, I broke it!
So they do the obvious thing and try to fix it. But then Liz and Miss Frizzle lets them inside, still unaware her doorbell isn't working. Although knowing Miss Frizzle, I have a feeling she already knows. Tim and Wanda look for a way to fix the doorbell, accidentally prompting Miss Frizzle to give a lesson on electricity. She compares positive and negative charges getting lonely when separated, but when they come together, sparks fly.
As my Aunt Salsa used to say about my Uncle Pepper, opposites attract. Oh.
See, it's a perfect lesson for Valentine's Day. Wanda has everybody get to the bus and try to figure out how to fix the doorbell by understanding how light bulbs work. They figure out they need a battery to power it in order to create an electrical current. They head back to the doorbell and find that there's a battery, and everything is in the right place, yet it's still not working. The bus shrinks down again to find a break in the current, and they discover a broken wire. Wanda finds the broken wire from the outside and repairs it with some tinfoil, thus repairing the doorbell. The bus resizes, and everybody hides, waiting for Miss Frizzle's lover to appear. Turns out her secret connection was actually her electrician, and the love letter was actually a pamphlet. Well, at least the doorbell doesn't have to be fixed anymore. And now we've reached the final episode of the original series called Takes a Dive. The kids are making a mini coral reef aquarium as part of a class project, and they've been instructed to work together in groups of 2 and help make the coral reef unique. Tensions clash when DA and Wanda are paired together, as Wanda hates working with somebody, resulting in her doing her own project, infuriating DA. Wanda's project, which was a treasure chest, makes Miss Frizzle recall her great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, Redbeard the pirate.
My great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather Redbeard's treasure map.
Turns out Redbeard had a treasure map to his buried treasure located in a coral reef, and Miss Frizzle just happens to have the very map on her. Wanda gets excited at the mention of pirates and wants to find it, so Miss Frizzle takes the class on one last field trip to find it. As they sail to the location on the map, Miss Frizzle tells them that, in a way, Redbeard did with his crew what Miss Frizzle is doing with them. taking them on fun field trips. They drop anchor, and Wanda's already eager to go underwater. But Miss Frizzle drops a twist, saying they have to all pair up with somebody, or else. So Wanda and DA are stuck with each other even though they already hate each other. They find the coral reef, and Wanda hastily follows the map, leaving DA in the dust. DA tries to get her to work together, but Wanda's determined to work alone.
We're partners, remember? What good did a partner ever do anyone anyway?
Miss Frizzle turns them all into various ocean creatures that depend on each other to survive. And Wanda ends up learning how important it is to have a partner. Wanda and DA find the treasure and accidentally cause a cave-in. Turns out the treasure chest has been polluting the reef, causing it to die over time. They remove the chest and restore the reef to its healthy glory, with a little bit of magic. Back in the classroom, they open the chest and discover a picture of Redbeard himself, as well as a model of Redbeard's magic Spanish galleon. I guess Miss Frizzle wasn't the only one with a magical vehicle in her family. Speaking of other magical family members, let's move on to the sequel show, The Magic School Bus Rides Again. Starting with the show's first episode, Frizzle of the Future. It's a new school year, complete with a new teacher and a new student, replacing Phoebe, complete with a modern new look. Although, to be honest, I think the original was better. But don't tell Netflix. Meet the new teacher, Miss Fiona Frizzle, voiced by SNL legend Kate McKinnon. I love her. She's the old Miss Frizzle's younger sister, who's taken over teaching because the old Frizz got her PhD and is now a retired professor. But don't worry, this new Frizzle still brings the same eccentric and fun energy as her sister. Replacing Phoebe is Joe T. Carr, a tech genius whose character design is meant to be a combination of two characters from the book series that never actually made it into the original show. Everybody else is still here and ready for another field trip, so let's begin. The episode begins with Arnold giving Joe T a tour of the classroom, showing her all the different jobs everybody's assigned, that they're all part of one small ecosystem. Suddenly, the bus lands from its trip to outer space as it was recharging its battery in the center of the sun, and in drops their new teacher, Miss Fiona Frizzle, followed by the OG Frizzle herself.
Whoa, total Frizzle overload!
Everybody already loves the new Frizz, except for Arnold, who isn't a fan of change. The old Frizz hands over the keys to the bus to her sister, simultaneously transferring the magic to her, and the kids embark on another field trip. Miss Frizzle takes the class to the Galapagos Islands and learns about ecosystems in the most diverse ecosystem on the planet. Miss Frizzle shows the class how everything is interconnected and depends on each other, and that if there is change, everything is unbalanced. Arnold points out that this is what the new Frizzle is doing by taking over the class, but no one listens. In retaliation, Arnold leaves behind Miss Frizzle's prized plant on the island, unaware that it's quickly altering the ecosystem. When they get back to school, Arnold begs the old Miss Frizzle to come back, but Miss Frizzle argues that sometimes change is good, even to an ecosystem. To prove this, the new Miss Frizzle takes everybody to the future, and they see that their class is still thriving, even with change. However, they discover that the plant Arnold left behind has dramatically altered the ecosystem of the Galapagos. Miss Frizzle recognizes it as her plant, and Arnold has to come forward and explain what he did. They time travel back to the moment Arnold left behind the plant, and capture it before it takes over the ecosystem. Arnold embraces the new Miss Frizzle as the new teacher, thus beginning a new era for the Magic School Bus.
I just have one thing left to say to you.
Really? What could that be? What is it?
In the battle for Rock Mountain, Weatherman returns to face his greatest foe, Captain Rockman. The kids are putting their most prized possessions into a time capsule, but Tim wants to put in a comic he created. Meanwhile, Arnold and Ralphie are clashing over which of their superheroes are better, which gives Tim an idea for his comic, but he needs inspiration. So Miss Frizzle takes them all on a field trip to Iceland, where the weather and rocks are always battling.
But I'm not seeing a lot of plot development here.
Weatherman uses the elements that make up weather, like water and air, to erode away Captain Rockman's igneous body, thus defeating him. However, Miss Frizzle says that just because rock is worn down doesn't mean the story is over. Weatherman's sidekick, Boy H2O, betrays him and joins forces with Captain Rockman, rebuilding him even stronger with sedimentary rock using the power of water. Weatherman is no match for him now. That's until three new superheroes enter the battlefield: the Tectonic Duo and Scarlet Scorch, as they apply pressure and heat to Captain Rockman, officially defeating him. Ironically, this actually makes him stronger, turning Captain Rockman's sedimentary body into metamorphic rock. This means there's only one superhero that can stop Captain Rockman: Mighty Inferno. She melts Captain Rockman. However, when Captain Rockman cools, he turns back into his original igneous rock form, thus making him the ultimate champ.
You can change Captain Rockman over and over and over, but you just can't beat him.
In Carlos Gets the Sneezes, Carlos and Wanda unveil their new class pet, Ratney. However, Mr. Rule has to approve the new pet, and Carlos is unable to make a compelling argument because he keeps sneezing. Miss Frizzle decides to take the class inside Carlos and figure out what's wrong. Does this plot sound familiar?
Ratney, I'm doing this for you. Hope you appreciate it.
The bus enters via Carlos's nose and enters his bloodstream, and disguises themselves as a blood cell, so white blood cells don't attack them by hitting the regular selinator. That really could have come in handy last time. DA discovers that Carlos doesn't have a virus, so they're unsure exactly why Carlos is sneezing. They enter the mucous membrane and discover that Carlos has allergies. They help clear his body of the allergens while Carlos tries to figure out what he's allergic to. Realizing he's allergic to Ratney, Carlos and Wanda have to give Ratney back to the animal shelter. However, when walking by the area, they discover that Carlos isn't allergic to the rat, but the pollen in the flowers.
You mean maybe the pollen got stuck in Ratney's fur? That would be choosing.
They get Ratney back, give him a bath, and welcome him as their new class pet. However, it turns out Mr. Rule is allergic to rats, so Carlos gets to take him home instead. Hey, you guys remember Janet? Well, she's back in the episode Ralphie Strikes a Nerve, and she's just as annoying in this show as she was in the last one. A couple of the kids are on the school's volleyball team, and they have a periodic track record of being terrible. Ralphie is confident that he can help the team win through the power of pep, but after finding out that their team is playing against Janet's team, who utterly destroyed them last time, all confidence goes right out the window.
Even our cheerleading squad is better than yours.
Ralphie realizes the only way they can get their team to win is if they have a cheerleading robot. So Miss Frizzle takes them to her friend Sarah Bellum's lab to get one. What is it with Ralphie and robots? Each student operates a different part of the body, Power Ranger style, with Ralphie operating the head. However, Ralphie doesn't understand how the brain and the nervous system work, so everybody takes another field trip inside Jyoti's body to learn about nervous systems. With Jyoti's help, Ralphie creates a nervous system within the robot, so he can communicate to the other body parts on how to cheer. However, there's too much information Ralphie has to monitor as the brain of the robot in charge of every movement, causing the robot to crash into the lab.
That's no giant cheerleading robot. It's a giant cheerleading death trap.
Upon examining Ralphie's brain, the class learns about the medulla oblongata and realize they need to establish a second nervous system within the robot. Ralphie puts Keisha in charge of the second nervous system, and it's kind of poetic, don't you think? They make it back to the game and manage to come back from a 3-19 loss with the power of a cheerleading robot, and they win the game. Now that is teamwork. In DA and the Deep Blue Sea, DA is using a technological locket that gathers data about the ocean for her blog when she accidentally loses it. The locket belonged to Jyoti's grandmother, and she's furious when she finds out.
But no biggie, because the locket's got GPS to locate it, right? Exactly, is what I'd say if GPS worked underwater, but it doesn't.
However, there's still a way that they can find it, and Miss Frizzle gets excited about taking everyone on an underwater search and rescue. Everybody searches for the locket, and they discover that the tide might have pushed the locket into the epipelagic zone. They search that zone, discovering all the ocean life and learning about it, only to discover the locket sank even further down, into another zone where there's too much water pressure to travel without the bus. The locket sends video of its location, and there's very little sunlight, meaning it sank really deep into the ocean. What's worse, it's been guarded by a goblin shark.
Look at that. I've never seen one up close. Isn't it the stuff of nightmares? I love it.
DA is still determined to get the locket back and takes them down into the mesopelagic zone. Learning how other fish hide from predators, they turn the yellow bus red and finally locate the locket. The goblin shark doesn't see them, but just as they're about to take back the locket, a squid steals it and runs off. They chase after the squid, causing the squid to drop the locket, sinking further and further down into the ocean. Taking another nod from how the fish survive at these incredible depths, they manage to get the locket back with a big mouth. Mission accomplished. Time to go home.
We should take some time to savor this moment. Okay, let's go home now.
However, because of all the data the locket has been gathering while it's been sinking, DA wants to explore even deeper into the ocean, and somehow manages to convince everybody to join her, including Arnold. The increasing water pressure makes the hull of the bus buckle, creating so much pressure that for the first time ever, it absorbs all the magic out of the bus and can't stop descending. They reach the bottom of the ocean and discover tube worms can survive feeding on the gases. The bus changes into one of these worms, and with the help of the group, manage to get enough power from the Earth's gas and restore the magic into the bus. The bus ascends back to the surface, and DA publishes her blog. Is it just me, or who feels a little claustrophobic after that one? While making a present for her grandmother in Nothing But Net, Jyoti accidentally traps Arnold in the internet and sends him a virtual gift to her grandma. For fear that her grandma might mistakenly delete Arnold from existence, Miss Frizzle takes the class on a field trip through the internet. They learn about binary code, and thanks to Ralphie, are able to get them to a domain server. Using her grandma's email address, they find the IXP and travel at the speed of light across the Pacific Ocean to her grandma's computer. However, they are stopped halfway as the cable has been sliced in half by a random anchor. They figure out that because the cable had broken, Arnold had to turn around and use a different cable to get to her computer.
Man, that's a lot of cables.
Too many. Arnold could be in any of them.
So, because there's too many options, they decide to split up and cover more ground quicker. They discover that Arnold has also been split up into thousands of different pieces. Luckily, they find the same number from the DNS server and discover it's an IP address. They convert themselves into data and travel to her grandma's computer via satellite.
Hey, Ralphie, how you doing? Not bad, Ralphie. How you doing?
Jyoti's grandma receives Arnold along with everybody else and converts them back into their normal forms, just in time to celebrate her birthday. Maybe this form of travel might catch on. In I Spy with My Animal Eyes, the class returns from another field trip only to discover that Arnold has lost Ratney. We flash back to reveal that the class was taking a field trip inside Arnold's eye when he lost Ratney. It's revealed that when Arnold was preparing Ratney's food, he left the cage unlocked, and Ratney escaped. Back in the present, they find Ratney and catch her. However, Ratney was still on the bus when they grew big again, and Ratney grew too. Arnold tries to shrink her, accidentally making her invisible and free.
We just lost a giant invisible rat!
They follow Ratney's trail, but it's impossible to follow something invisible, so they resort to changing the bus's eyes to different animal eyes, learning all the different ways animals are able to see the world around them. Unable to find Ratney, they decide to lure Ratney to them by filling a hole with her favorite food. However, it turns out this whole time, Arnold hadn't hit the invisible button, but the shrink button, and Ratney had been with him the entire time. Do you guys remember Carlos's wheelchair-bound little brother, Mikey? Well, he returns in this show in the episode The Good, the Bad, and the Noki. Carlos and Mikey are racing each other to Ralphie's parents' Italian restaurant, where everybody else is admiring the incredible pasta display in the window. The race is declared a tie, but Carlos and Mikey still want to prove who's the fastest.
I'd be first up a mountain.
Too bad there's no mountain around here to prove it.
Miss Frizzle, donning a Wild West persona, lets them settle who's the fastest by racing up the giant mountain of spaghetti, dividing the class into teams. The one catch is that they have to make it up the mountain without any climbing gear, instead by learning how to use simple machines. They manage to clear a giant meatball ramp over a pile of spaghetti and clear a path through an avalanche of alphabet noodles. They finally reach the mountain, but face another obstacle. Ralphie's dog Noodles eating the display, which triggers another avalanche separating Carlos and Mikey from everybody else. With Noodles' hungry mouth getting closer and closer, everybody works together to quickly reach the summit where Miss Frizzle is waiting to pick them up. They reach the top, right as Noodles starts eating the mountain, causing everybody to crumble around them. Everyone gets to safety, but Carlos has to rescue Mikey, forcing them to work together to get back to Miss Frizzle. In the end, it's still a tie, but everybody learned a valuable lesson on simple mechanics, so it's a win in Miss Frizzle's books. The series finale, called Making Magic, begins with Mr. Rule giving a surprise inspection of the bus to determine if the class should be allowed to go on more field trips. The bus passes inspection, and Miss Frizzle is relieved knowing the bus will be okay when they travel to the center of the sun today. She says this out loud in front of Mr. Rule, of course.
You mean some sort of virtual reality field trip?
No.
Mr. Rule expresses he's always had an interest in studying the sun, so Miss Frizzle invites him along on their field trip, all the while thinking he's in some sort of virtual reality. While trying to hide the fact that this isn't a virtual experience, Arnold accidentally launches Mr. Rule into space towards the sun. Normally, anybody would be terrified, but Mr. Rule is loving this, unaware that he is in fact actually entering the actual sun.
I hope Mr. Rule is still okay.
They make their way to the core of the sun, really draining the bus's energy and its protective shields, and they find Mr. Rule. They try to capture him, but then a blast of gamma rays sends Mr. Rule flying out of the sun at the speed of light. They exit the sun and finally rescue Mr. Rule. However, they exhausted so much of the bus's power trying to rescue him that now they can't safely descend into the sun again and recharge. They do have escape pods, but they only have enough power to launch one of them. Arnold, finally understanding what it means to be brave, realizes what must be done. He enters the escape pod, launching himself into the sun with the bus's battery. Arnold charges the battery, but finds out that even though the battery's charged, His pod won't have enough power to get back to them because they run on different cables, meaning Arnold will die in the core of the sun.
But the bus needs it, and so do all my friends, and Miss Frizzle.
Arnold accepts his fate and launches the battery back to the bus. The battery inserts itself back into the bus, restoring the bus to full power. They then mount a rescue to get Arnold back and successfully get him back. They return home at the speed of light, and Mr. Rule, still thinking it was all a simulation, determines the field trip should continue. If only he knew. Moving on to the first of 4 45-minute Netflix specials of the sequel show, premiering in 2020 and 2021, and all 4 of these specials are dedicated to Joanna Cole, the authors of the Magic School Bus who died in July 2020. The first special, called Kids in Space, begins with Miss Frizzle docking the bus into the International Space Station after the kids have undergone space training, and each of them have their important assigned tasks as the first kids to ever set foot on the ISS. Here, they will have the entire station to themselves as they monitor the station in between astronaut shift changes. While the bus remains docked, they are accompanied by the new bus drone, equipped with all the features of the bus.
Look at that. Awesome. Check it out. It makes me feel very small, but also connected to everything.
While Wanda is studying how tardigrades, or water bears, survive in space, Ralphie can't stop goofing around and causes it an ice cream mess. He tries to clean it up by making each crumb bigger using Miss Frizzle's porta-shrinker. However, when he's finished, he doesn't turn it off, leaving it to shrink and enlarge whatever it's aimed at, accidentally enlarging a tardigrade.
What in the name of all its black hole is that?
Ralphie and Wanda run, or in this case, float to tell everybody, and the tardigrade chases them all throughout the station. Carlos, Ralphie, Wanda, and Arnold hide, and Carlos finds out that Ralphie was the one responsible for creating the monster using security footage. Ralphie acknowledges his own fault and comes up with a plan to shrink the tardigrade back to its microscopic size with the help of the bus drone, and locks everybody else inside the bus to keep them safe. Ralphie leads the tardigrade away, searching for the porta-shrinker but can't find it anywhere. The tardigrade traps Ralphie in a corner and is about to eat him, but goes for the water instead. Ralphie figures out that this is what the tardigrade has been searching for all this time, and helps it get more water, even acknowledging that he's kinda cute.
Ugh. I take it back.
Luckily, Ralphie finds the porta-shrinker in the tardigrade's poop, hinting he must have eaten it when he got into some of the water. Ralphie shrinks the tardigrade and saves the day. Wanda leaves the bus, not knowing Ralphie already stopped the tardigrade, and sees Ralphie eject the laundry. Thinking her precious tardigrade is in there, she goes after it, but didn't make sure her tether was properly secured and is now floating away towards the vacuum of space. Tim uses his training and operates the giant robot arm in the station to save Wanda, but then her tether becomes unhooked. Ralphie goes out to save her, but she's too far out for his tether to reach, so Ralphie unhooks his tether and uses air freshener to boost his way to Wanda. He saves Wanda and gets back to the station, but he overshoots it and runs out of air freshener. Tim tries to grab them, but now they're too far away.
Thing left for us to push off of. Each other. Wanda, no!
Wanda sacrifices herself and pushes Ralphie back towards the station. But thankfully, Jyoti remembers the bus drone and sends it after Wanda, saving her life. Why didn't they just use the drone in the first place? I digress. They repair the damage to the station, just in time for the replacement crew to arrive, led by real-life astronaut Chris Hadfield playing himself. They leave the station, and Ralphie can finally rest after everything. Moving on to the Frizz Connection, it's Arnold's birthday, and as a present, Miss Frizzle lets Arnold choose their next field trip. Naturally, you would think that Arnold would want to just stay home. But ironically, Arnold actually decides to take the class to the hot air balloon fiesta in Albuquerque, New Mexico. They transform the bus into one giant hot air balloon and use the air currents to get there. However, they get swept up in a violent storm with no way out. Suddenly, lightning strikes the bus, somehow splitting the bus into 3 parts and separating everybody, including the Frizz. Ralphie, Keisha, and Carlos find themselves in Hawaii with a crazy Miss Frizzle. Tim, Wanda, and Jyoti land in Peru with an adventurous Miss Frizzle. And Arnold, D.A., and Liz land in Nova Scotia with an intelligent Miss Frizzle. The kids find a way to contact everybody, and intelligent Miss Frizzle explains that this isn't the first time this has happened.
According to my research... Oh, who am I kidding? There's no research to support this! This is impossible!
She also reveals that if they are not rejoined soon, they will all disappear. So they all agree to meet at Albuquerque. However, things become complicated as each of Miss Frizzle's personalities become difficult to control, resulting in some wacky hijinks and delays. The kids learn about how air currents work and decide to ride them to Albuquerque. However, they didn't account for air currents curving because the Earth is round, resulting in all 3 groups landing somewhere else, not Albuquerque. They make corrections, right as all 3 Frizzles disappear completely before coming back, meaning they're almost out of time. Arnold and DA remember that each hot air balloon is still technically the magic school bus, so they figure out a way to create their own air currents to push them faster to Albuquerque. The Frizzles keep fading away more frequently, and DA calculates they only have 15 minutes before Miss Frizzle is gone forever.
We only have 15 minutes to get them back together or Miss Frizzle's gone for good.
They finally reach everybody, but all the air currents they've been making have created a massive storm. And if they come together, it'll create a tornado. Arnold says they have to take that risk in order to save Miss Frizzle. They all get sucked into the tornado and hang on. Suddenly, the buses form a triangle of magical energy, bringing all three Frizzles together. Miss Frizzle returns, and the bus reconnects, reuniting everybody safely inside. However, they're still inside the tornado, so they figure out a way to escape by reversing the air pressure of the currents and stop the tornado. Miss Frizzle thanks everybody for saving her, and they finally make it to the hot air balloon fiesta.
Look at all those balloons riding the air currents.
From high pressure to low stress.
In the Zone, Miss Frizzle treats the class to a live concert of their favorite artist, Maven, voiced by Lights, who just so happens to be Miss Frizzle's cousin. At this point, I'm convinced that everybody in the world is related to or knows Miss Frizzle. What makes this special is Miss Frizzle plans to take them all to each concert at 11 p.m. on New Year's Eve in each time zone, starting with the one in New Zealand. And yes, if you haven't already guessed, this episode is about time zones. However, with each time zone jump, the bus keeps randomly glitching. At first, Miss Frizzle can't figure out why and thinks that it's nothing, until she remembers that every year at precisely midnight on New Year's Eve, the bus updates its magic wear. However, because they've been traveling to each time zone at 11 p.m., the bus has been re-downloading the new magic wear for the past 4 hours and hasn't been able to install the new update because they keep leaving each time zone before it can. The problem is that any magic the bus does before midnight will never ever be undone, and Miss Frizzle just made all the kids except Jyoti invisible. Miss Frizzle tries to undo the magic, accidentally turning Jyoti into a butterfly, yet Jyoti still flies off to save everybody else from being invisible backstage at the concert. Jyoti somehow finds them, and Miss Frizzle accidentally turns everybody else into butterflies. Jyoti explains what's happening and gets them out of there. Using some quick thinking, when everybody else becomes hypnotized by the concert's flashing lights, they get back to the bus, and somehow manage to change everybody back. Miss Frizzle tries to teleport back to Walkerville, but the bus urges her not to, because there's no knowing where it might teleport them to.
With all these glitches, it's best to play it safe. Finally!
They travel as far west as they can. All the while, bus keeps transforming and glitching out of control. Suddenly, the bus takes control and plots its own course south of the South Pole, where all the time zones meet. They crash land, and the bus glitches everybody into something different. They try to push the bus into an earlier time zone, but it's too heavy, until the bus turns Arnold into Captain Rockman. Arnold moves the bus to an earlier time zone, but doesn't move it far as he turns back into himself. The bus then crawls its way to the point where every time zone meets, and turns everybody back to normal. However, the bus can't handle being in every time zone and has to split itself into all the different zones, using Maven's music to hold itself together. It's a scary moment, as for the first time, we see Miss Frizzle become genuinely worried, thinking this really is the end for the magic bus. But thanks to the kids singing along, the bus is able to bring itself back together, using the sound waves from the singing to keep time by honking and blocking out the glitching. The song is a love song to the bus, talking about how if it wasn't for the bus, learning would never have been so much fun, or in this case, magical.
There's so much to say at the end of the day, 'cause our time has just begun.
The bus is able to do one last teleportation and miraculously teleports everybody back to Walkerville. Sadly, the bus teleported them there 1 minute after midnight before it had a chance to update, meaning the bus is now a normal everyday bus. Jyoti is determined not to let this be the end, and remembers that time zones are strictly arbitrary from when they traveled through China, since China's government mandated the entire country be one giant time zone. Since Walkerville is at the far edge of their time zone, that means it's technically not midnight. She then sets the bus's clock to solar time, and gives the bus an extra 30 seconds till midnight. Everybody gets out while the bus updates, and the bus gets its magic back. Who knew the magic school bus could take you on an emotional roller coaster like this? Also, who knew that all of China is the same time zone? In the show's final special, Goldsteeler, Keisha's mother Angela is competing in the World Wheel games that only happen every 3.14 years. You know, the mathematical constant of pi that's used in formulas involving circles? Pretty clever. However, Angela is framed for stealing the gold medal and is unable to compete, which devastates Keisha.
We have you on video stealing the medal.
Miss Frizzle encourages Keisha along with the rest of the class to prove Angela's innocence as undercover spies. Tim, Wanda, and Carlos find a pine cone the thief dropped during the heist and figure out where the thief must have come from. However, in order to get past security, they had to shrink down really small. And when they found the pine cone, a skateboarder flew over their heads and made them drop the shrinker scope down a skateboarding bowl, which for them is now the size of the Grand Canyon. They slide down to get the shrinker scope, but a random skateboarder accidentally runs over it, destroying it and trapping them in a skateboarding bowl overrun with skateboarders. Luckily, they're saved by another past student of Miss Frizzle, skateboarding legend Annie Guglia, voicing an alternate version of herself. She directs them to the half-pipe and gets to safety on top of it. Meanwhile, the rest of the class follows the thief's tracks to a tea house run by a sweet old lady. Keisha's skeptical the thief is still here, and has Ralphie investigate using his new hat camera. Ralphie then accidentally knocks over a teacup, prompting the old lady to catch the cup in a way that exposes she's no old lady. Keisha spots the thief's helmet, and the old lady reveals herself as the thief.
You're no friendly tea-selling lady. You're Goldsteeler.
She escapes down a hidden shaft, and the kids follow right behind her. The thief escapes using her bike, and the kids chase after her using their new magic bikes, learning about friction, traction, and wind resistance in the process. However, all their different bikes aren't equipped for every obstacle, and eventually only Keisha remains. Keisha finds herself alone with the metal, only to fall into the thief's trap. The thief reveals herself to be an old rival of her mom's, Laura Smith, who's still mad at her mom for catching her cheating during the last race that she won golden. Laura's confident no one will ever know or find Keisha after she just revealed everything.
And no one will ever know it was all me.
Wanna bet? Did you get that, Ralphie?
But Keisha confirms that Ralphie recorded everything with his hat camera. Ralphie throws Keisha the hat before Laura causes her mountain hideout to cave in, and Keisha rides off with it with Laura right behind her. The bus bulldozes everybody out of the collapsed cave and helps Keisha outbike a more experienced Laura, using their new knowledge of friction and air resistance. Keisha makes it to the race before it starts and proves her mom is innocent. However, Laura catches up and steals the evidence, but thanks to the kids' spy gadgets, courtesy the magic bus, they're able to stop her. Angela is allowed back into the race, and wins the race thanks to Keisha. Well, that just about covers the entire 31-year history of the Magic School Bus. Hope you guys had just as much fun driving down memory lane as I did, and maybe you even learned a thing or two about science. But if you're like me, and you still want more, you'll be happy to know that later this year there's another show coming out called The Magic School Bus Mighty Explorers, featuring a whole new school bus and students. But of course, still the same old Miss Frizzle. So, be on the lookout. We might just cover that show in the future. Thanks for watching. See ya!